Ava Carrington sat at the polished marble table of the Carrington Group boardroom, her expression composed, elegant, and unyielding. Every eye in the room was on her. The prodigy heiress, the daughter of Charles Carrington, the man who built a billion-dollar empire from dust and steel. She had been trained for this moment since childhood. Every gesture rehearsed, every word calculated. Her voice, calm and confident, echoed through the boardroom as she presented quarterly growth statistics and outlined market projections. The older men nodded approvingly. Her father looked proud, even indulgent. On the surface, Ava was everything the Carrington legacy demanded: obedient, articulate, the ideal successor. But beneath that flawless composure, a quiet storm brewed. "Every one of you is lying through your perfect white teeth," her inner voice hissed, though her face betrayed nothing. "You praise numbers you didn't earn, claim loyalty you don't feel, and bleed this company dry while smiling for the cameras." Her pulse thrummed under her blazer sleeve, but she didn't blink. At the far end of the table, Julian Mercer, COO and family favorite, smirked. "Miss Carrington, your proposal is ambitious," he said, "but perhaps a bit too aggressive for the market." Laughter rippled across the table. Ava smiled politely. "With respect, Mr. Mercer, stagnation is a far greater risk than ambition. And you'd know, wouldn't you, Julian? You've been leeching off my father's trust for years." Then, before she could exhale, the words left her lips, clear, crisp, and undeniable. "You've been leeching off my father's trust for years." Silence. Julian froze. The board members exchanged glances. Her father's brow furrowed. "Ava," Charles said slowly, "what did you just say?" Her blood ran cold. She hadn't spoken. At least, not intentionally. She'd only thought it. Her inner voice shouted again, panicked now. "What? No, that wasn't me." Did we all just hear that?" whispered one of the board members. "Yes," another said, looking alarmed. "We did." Her heart pounded. Somewhere near the speaker console, a soft red light blinked. The new AI audio relay system that Julian had installed last month. It was supposed to improve real-time captioning for accessibility. It was broadcasting her thoughts. "Mr. Mercer," she said tightly, forcing her composure back, "perhaps there's a technical malfunction." But the red light flickered again, and her inner voice cut her off, venomous, unfiltered. "All of you only care about money. I'll crush you one by one." Gasps filled the room. Her father stood up sharply. "Ava!" She froze. She wanted to deny it, to claim some malfunction, but the look in their eyes, shock, fear, intrigue, said everything. They just heard the truth she'd hidden her entire life. Julian smirked. "Quite the confession, Miss Carrington." Her heart hammered. The walls felt like they were closing in. Miranda, her father's second wife, crossed her arms. "Well," she said smoothly, "it seems our dear Ava has finally found her voice." Ava's inner thought screamed, "Turn it off. Turn it off before I destroy everything." But it was too late. In the sterile glow of the boardroom lights, the perfect heiress's mask cracked, and the family and company she'd spent years trying to impress finally saw the truth. Beneath the charm, beneath the silken smiles, was a woman who'd been silently plotting their downfall. The moment the words left the speakers, the Carrington boardroom descended into chaos. Chairs scraped against marble. Papers fluttered. Voices rose in disbelief. The carefully cultivated order of Carrington Group, the poise, the discipline, the illusion of control, fractured in seconds. Ava Carrington stood frozen in the eye of the storm. Her father's face hardened with each second of silence that followed. "Ava," he said slowly, deliberately, "you owe everyone in this room an explanation." She swallowed, every instinct screaming at her to stay calm. "There's been a malfunction," she said. "The new audio system, it's picking up stray feedback, that's all." Julian Mercer folded his arms, lips curving in a predator's smile. "Stray feedback that somehow forms complete, damning sentences? How fascinating." Her heart drummed in her chest. "You installed that system, didn't you?" He didn't flinch. "Under the board's approval, yes. Unless you're suggesting I programmed it to expose your thoughts." A few board members shifted uncomfortably. The weight of scandal hung heavy in the air. Miranda Carrington, her father's second wife, watched Ava with cool amusement. Her red nails tapped the table rhythmically. "Oh, darling," she purred. If you really think so little of us, perhaps you should say it to our faces instead of whispering it to the walls. Ava forced herself to breathe. Her inner voice whispered furiously, "Stay still. Don't give them what they want." But the blinking red light on the speaker system betrayed her. "I'd rather burn this company than let any of you control it," her inner voice hissed. And the board heard it. Again. The room went still. Charles Carrington slammed his hand against the table. "Enough!" he barked, his booming voice echoing off the glass walls. "Turn that damned system off." A technician rushed in from the outer office, pale and panicked. "Sir, it's not responding. It's like it's, well, locked into broadcast mode." Julian's eyes glinted. "Locked? By whom?" "I don't know." Miranda leaned back in her chair, lips curling. "Perhaps by our dear heiress. She seems to be the one with secrets to hide." Ava's inner voice snarled, "You're one to talk, Miranda. How's that offshore account treating you?" Every head turned. Miranda's painted smile faltered for the first time. Charles blinked. "Offshore account?" Miranda shot to her feet. "That's absurd." But Ava saw it, just a flicker of fear behind the defiance. Her pulse steadied. If this disaster couldn't be stopped, maybe it could be used. She straightened, smoothing her blazer. "Father," she said evenly, "this is an invasion of privacy. If my thoughts are being broadcast, then perhaps we should all be very careful about what secrets this room might reveal." Julian's smirk vanished. Miranda's face drained of color. The technician swallowed. I can shut down the power feed, but it'll take a few minutes." "Do it," Charles growled. While the technician fumbled with the controls, Ava's inner voice hummed under her breath. "Good. Let them sweat. Let them wonder how much I know." Then, another voice, Luca Parks, crackled through the intercom. "Ava, it's Luca. Don't move. Don't say another word." She froze. Her old friend and tech consultant. What was he doing on the system feed? Julian frowned. "Who's that?" Before Ava could respond, Luca continued, "The system isn't malfunctioning. Someone's rerouted your neural input through the AI relay. It's not random. It's deliberate. Someone wanted your inner voice to go public." The room erupted again. Ava's stomach twisted. "You mean someone hacked me?" "Yes," Luca said. "And I think I know who." The red light blinked once more, and the line went dead. Ava stood there amid the chaos, heart pounding. Every pair of eyes in the room burned into her, accusatory, terrified, hungry. For the first time in her life, the perfect heiress wasn't performing. She was fighting to survive. And somewhere deep down, her inner voice whispered, not in fear, but in resolve, "If they want a monster, I'll give them one." When the emergency meeting ended, the boardroom emptied like a leaking ship. The older directors muttered about damage control and public relations nightmares. Julian strutted out, savoring his moment of false superiority. Miranda trailed behind him, whispering in her husband's ear, planting seeds of doubt. Ava remained at the table, staring at the blinking light that finally went dark. For the first time that day, she let her mask slip. Her hands trembled. She could still hear the echo of her own voice spilling her secrets. "I'll crush you one by one." It wasn't the sentence itself that haunted her. It was the fact that, deep down, she meant every word. The sound of her father's heavy footsteps filled the silence. Charles Carrington, silver-haired and intimidating as ever, stood at the doorway. His face, carved from years of power and pride, was unreadable. "Come with me," he said. No warmth. No hesitation. Ava followed him down the long corridor to his private office. The glass walls reflected the skyline, Carrington Tower's empire stretching far beyond the city, glittering and cold. He closed the door. The sound of the latch locking was soft but final. "Sit." Ava obeyed. Her throat was dry. Charles leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "You embarrass this family in front of every major investor we have," he said. "Do you have any idea what that broadcast has done?" Her jaw clenched. "It wasn't me, Father. Someone hacked the system." "Stop." His tone was sharp enough to slice through the air. "Don't lie to me, Ava. I've heard your tone before. That hatred, it's not new." Ava's fingers dug into the armrest of the chair. Hatred? She repeated softly. Or honesty? You taught me how to play this game, remember? You said power demands silence. I've been silent for years while they stole from you. While Miranda smiled and Julian moved money you never saw. Charles's expression hardened. You don't know what you're talking about. Her inner voice, raw and unfiltered, whispered before she could stop it. Yes, I do. I know about the off-book accounts, the shell companies, the deals you buried under charity foundations. The speaker on the desk crackled. Her father's eyes widened. He'd heard it too. The feed wasn't completely dead. Ava's stomach sank. It's still on, she muttered. Charles stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. If you truly care about this family, you will keep quiet. We can fix this. Julian's already drafting a statement, blaming a system glitch. You'll stay out of sight. Her chest tightened. Hide? Pretend. He gave a bitter laugh. It's what Carringtons do best. Something inside Ava broke. Years of obedience, of smiling at corruption, of watching men like Julian and Miranda rewrite her mother's legacy, it all snapped in that moment. She stood. If this family burns because of truth, then maybe it deserves to. Charles's voice turned cold. You're making a mistake. Her inner voice whispered again, louder this time. The mistake was trusting any of you. The air vibrated with that sentence. He'd heard it. She saw it in his eyes. Hours later, Ava sat alone in her car in the underground parking lot, the city's neon lights flickering on the windshield. She dialed Luca Park's number. He answered on the second ring. Ava, are you safe? Not exactly, she murmured. You said someone hacked the system. Who? Luca hesitated. The logs were wiped, but the signature pattern matches someone inside the Carrington network. High-level access. Julian. Maybe. But the encryption was cleaner than his usual work. This was someone who knew how to hide. Someone close to the family. Ava's pulse quickened. Miranda. I didn't say that, Luca warned. But you're thinking it. She leaned back, staring at the tower above. Then let's find proof. Ava, if you push this. I'm done pretending, Luca. Her voice hardened. They want war? They'll get it. As she hung up, the city hummed around her. The perfect heiress was gone. In her place stood something colder. Something sharper. They exposed my thoughts, she whispered to herself, eyes glinting in the dark. Now I'll expose theirs. Ava Carrington didn't sleep that night. The city outside her penthouse window glittered like a field of fire, each light a reminder of the world that believed she had lost her mind. Headlines screamed her name. Carrington heiress exposed in boardroom meltdown. Ava Carrington's inner thoughts leaked during meeting. I'll crush you one by one. It would have been a career-ending scandal for anyone else. But for Ava, it was gasoline poured on an already smoldering fire. She sat at her desk, the glow of her laptop reflecting off her sharp eyes. Her fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, decrypting files Luca had sent. Hidden folders. Financial trails. Offshore accounts. Shell companies under names she recognized all too well. Julian Mercer, Miranda Carrington, and even one quietly tied to her father. Every document was proof of what she had only suspected. They were bleeding the company dry. Luca's message appeared on her screen. Luca. You sure you want to go through with this? Ava. They turned my mind into a weapon. It's my turn to aim. Luca. This isn't a simple leak. You'll be exposing family. Ava. Family doesn't extort you and smile about it. She sent the message before she could second-guess it. By morning, Ava had a plan. If her thoughts were no longer private, then she would control the narrative. She would turn their fear into her power. The Carrington empire had survived on silence, boardroom oaths, private settlements, and strategic omissions. Ava would destroy that system with one thing they couldn't stand: truth. Her first target was Julian Mercer, the self-proclaimed strategist who called her too emotional in meetings and whispered to shareholders that she wasn't ready. She'd found his weak point buried in years of digital filings, a procurement subsidiary that accidentally funneled money into a private luxury development, registered under his sister's name. Perfect. That afternoon, she arrived at headquarters unannounced. The security team hesitated but didn't stop her. She was still Carrington blood, still on the company roster, at least for now. When she stepped into the boardroom, the same men who had gawked at her meltdown 2 days earlier now avoided her gaze. Julian was already there, pretending to review a stack of reports. "Ava," he said, voice smooth as oil. "I'm surprised you came back so soon. Brave. Or foolish?" She smiled. "Brave, mostly." Miranda's voice floated from behind him. "I told Charles we should have suspended her credentials. But I suppose every circus needs its star performer." Ava's lips curved. "Say what you want. You'll be the one on fire soon." Miranda blinked, startled. She'd heard it. The system was still picking up her inner voice. The faintest red light glowed again in the corner of the ceiling camera. "Good. Let them listen." She placed a manila folder on the table and slid it toward Julian. "A proposal," she said sweetly. He opened it, and froze. Inside were copies of transfer receipts, time-stamped video stills, and emails linking his signature to the offshore property project. Ava leaned forward. "Here's what happens next. You resign quietly, citing health reasons, or I let the board see this. And maybe the authorities too." Julian's jaw tightened. "You think you can blackmail me, little girl?" Her inner voice slipped through again. Cold, deliberate. "Not blackmail. Leverage. You taught me that word." The color drained from his face. Miranda looked between them, calculating. "Where did you get this?" Ava turned toward her, smiling faintly. "Let's just say I'm done playing by your rules." Julian shoved the folder back toward her. "You'll destroy the company if you leak that." Ava's eyes narrowed. "The company's been destroying itself for years. I'm just turning on the lights." Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the marble, her father's empire trembling behind her. That night, she stood on her balcony overlooking the city. The air smelled like rain and electricity. Her phone buzzed. A message from Luca. "Luca. You made your move." "Ava. Just the first one." "Luca. You're starting a war, Ava." "Ava. No. I'm ending one that's been going on my whole life." Her reflection in the glass smirked back at her. They wanted a perfect heiress, she thought. They got a revolution instead. By the next morning, the storm had broken wide open. Every major news outlet carried the same story. Carrington heiress delivers confidential files to shareholders. Scandal in the boardroom. The leak hadn't come directly from Ava. She'd only shown Julian the documents. But someone, perhaps one of the board members eager to protect their own skin, had slipped the packet to the press. Carrington Group's stock tumbled 7% before noon. Reporters camped outside the tower. The public loved every second of the chaos. It was the sort of corporate bloodletting they adored. Ava read the headlines over her morning coffee, an unreadable half-smile on her lips. The mask of the dutiful daughter was gone for good. At 9, she walked into the building as if nothing were wrong. The lobby was full of security and journalists shouting questions. She didn't look at them. Cameras clicked, bulbs flashed, but she moved through it like a ghost, straight into the elevator that would take her to the top floor. When the doors opened, Julian was already waiting. His tie was loose, his eyes bloodshot. "You leaked it," he accused. "I didn't have to," she said calmly. "Truth has a way of escaping." Behind him, Miranda appeared, phone in hand, voice sharp as glass. "The board is furious. Your father can barely keep this together. Investors are calling for a formal inquiry." Ava turned to her. "Good. That means they're listening." Julian slammed a folder onto the table. "You're finished, Ava. You've humiliated this family, tanked the stock, and destroyed your father's credibility." Her inner voice answered before she could stop it. Cold, hard, precise. "No, Julian. I destroyed yours." The faint hum of the ceiling system answered her. The red light was back. Miranda froze. So did Julian. He stepped closer. "You still haven't found who's feeding that system, have you?" She met his gaze evenly. "Maybe I don't need to. Maybe it's useful." For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the distant whir of the city outside the windows. Then Miranda said, "You're playing a dangerous game, dear. People who dig too deep into corporate skeletons tend to vanish." Ava smiled, small and sharp. "Is that a threat?" "Consider it advice." Her phone buzzed. A message from Luca. I found it. The access logs lead back to Miranda's department. We're tracing further now. Ava looked up slowly. Interesting, she murmured. Miranda frowned. What? Oh, nothing, Ava said aloud. Her inner voice spoke the rest, just confirming what I already knew. Miranda's lips parted in shock. She'd heard it too. That afternoon, an emergency shareholder meeting was called. Ava arrived late on purpose, letting the tension build. The auditorium was full. Board members, investors, journalists. Her father stood at the podium, trying to calm the crowd. This company, Charles declared, has weathered storms before. My daughter's statements were taken out of context. Ava stepped up beside him. No, father, she said quietly into the microphone. They weren't. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Carrington Group deserves transparency, Ava continued. That's why, effective immediately, I'm requesting an independent audit. Every contract, every account, every deal from the last 5 years. Her father turned toward her, furious. You can't. But she could. And she did. The audience erupted. Half in applause, half in outrage. Cameras flashed like lightning. Her father's hand gripped her shoulder. You're tearing this family apart. She whispered back, voice like steel. Then maybe it was never a family at all. That night, from her apartment window, Ava watched the news replay her speech over and over. Commentators called her brave, reckless, brilliant, dangerous. She didn't care which word they chose. Every headline was oxygen feeding her fire. Her phone rang. Luca again. You made yourself a target, he said. Julian's digging. Miranda's panicking. Someone tried to wipe the servers 30 minutes ago. Can you stop them? I can slow them down. Ava's reflection in the window smiled faintly. That's all I need. Outside, thunder rolled across the skyline. Inside, the perfect heiress sharpened her next move. The next 72 hours felt like a siege. The Carrington Tower, once a monument of glass and gold, now resembled a war bunker. Reporters clogged the street. Protesters chanted about corporate corruption. Investors demanded explanations. The boardroom became a battlefield of blame. And at the center of it all was Ava. She stood in the middle of the storm, watching everything she had ever known crumble. Slowly, beautifully, necessarily. But she wasn't prepared for how personal the counterattack would be. It started with the call from Human Resources. Ava, the voice on the other end said nervously, we received an anonymous complaint regarding misuse of company funds linked to your personal account. Ava's brow furrowed. That's impossible. Compliance has opened a review. Effective immediately, your corporate access is suspended pending investigation. Click. She stared at the silent phone. Julian. It had to be Julian. Retaliation. Swift and dirty. Within hours, the gossip sites were buzzing again. Carrington heiress under investigation for embezzlement. The hypocrite of high society? The internet, fickle and voracious, turned on her. The same commenters who'd praised her bravery now called her spoiled, arrogant, entitled. By the time she reached her apartment, 2 security guards were waiting. Miss Carrington, one said uneasily, we've been instructed to collect your keycards. Company property. Her laugh was low and bitter. Of course. They left her standing in the doorway, powerless, for the first time in her life. That night, Ava's phone buzzed. Luca's voice was urgent. I checked the logs, he said. The accusation's fake. They planted false transfers in your name, high-value crypto tied to a vendor account you've never used. Julian. Or someone working for him. Maybe Miranda. They covered their tracks well, but I'm tracing the original timestamp. It came from the chairman's office. Ava froze. My father's. I'm sorry, Ava. She sank onto the couch, breath shallow. He wouldn't. Not after everything. Luca hesitated. Maybe he thinks he's protecting the company. Or maybe he's protecting himself. Her inner voice, sharp and wounded, whispered. He's protecting the lie he built his empire on. And somewhere, somehow, the system caught it. Because less than an hour later, a private message arrived from her father's assistant. From Charles Carrington's office. You're crossing lines you don't understand. Stop before you ruin us all. She read it 3 times, her heart a tangle of fury and disbelief. By dawn, the truth hit harder. Luca called again, this time with something worse. Ava, listen carefully. Someone tried to break into my apartment last night. They didn't take anything. Just wanted to scare me. Her voice dropped. They're coming after you now? I'm fine, he said, though she could hear the tremor. But you need to stop digging. They're desperate. Ava stood at the window, watching the sunrise bleed gold over the skyline. That's exactly why I can't stop. Ava. Luca, everything I've done, every risk I've taken, it's to pull this rot into the light. I won't back down now. There was a long silence. Then quietly, then I'll help you burn them properly. Later that afternoon, the board announced an emergency press conference. Ava knew what it meant even before she turned on the broadcast. Her father stood at the podium, the same calm mask he'd worn for years. The cameras adored him. The perfect patriarch, protecting the empire. Recent allegations involving my daughter are under formal review, he said evenly. While I love her deeply, I must place the integrity of this company above personal ties. Effective immediately, Ava Carrington is suspended from all duties. The room erupted in questions. Ava watched from her apartment, the coffee in her hand gone cold. Her inner voice whispered, hollow. He chose the company over me. And for the first time since this began, she didn't fight the tears. That night, she sat in the dark, her laptop glowing in front of her. Luca was on a secure call. There's one more thing, he said. I found the source of the hack that exposed your thoughts. It didn't come from inside the company originally. It came from a subsidiary tech firm, one that Miranda's been using for private data analytics. Ava straightened. So she was the one who made everyone hear me? Looks that way. And guess what? That firm has contracts signed under your father's name. For a moment, Ava didn't breathe. The puzzle pieces slid together in her mind. The hack. The exposure. The scandal. The retaliation. This hadn't been chaos. It had been strategy. They planned it, she realized. They wanted me humiliated, discredited, isolated. They wanted the heiress gone before she could take control. Her jaw clenched. Then they've made their last mistake. Luca hesitated. What are you going to do? Her voice was calm, almost cold. I'm going to make them hear the truth again. Only this time it won't be my thoughts. Ava didn't sleep that night. She sat cross-legged on her living room floor, the city lights cutting long gold stripes across her face, while Luca's laptop hummed on the coffee table. Lines of code scrolled like falling rain. Are you sure about this? Luca asked. His voice was a low rasp, worn thin from days of tension. If you do this, there's no going back. Ava's eyes stayed on the screen. They used my mind against me, Luca. My thoughts, my privacy. They stripped me down in front of everyone. This isn't just revenge anymore. It's justice. Luca gave a humorless laugh. That's what all revolutionaries say before they hit enter. Ava looked up at him, calm and unwavering. Then call me a revolutionary. They'd spent the last 24 hours reverse engineering the very system that had humiliated her. Miranda's data analytics firm had left breadcrumbs, encrypted backups, cloud pings, backdoor APIs. With Luca's skill and Ava's insider knowledge, they'd breached it completely. Every board member, every offshore account, every private message. It was all there. But Ava wasn't going to just dump it anonymously. She had learned from the boardroom broadcast. A spectacle mattered. A narrative mattered. If the Carrington family wanted theater, she would give them the grand finale. 2 nights later, an exclusive shareholders meeting was called at Carrington Tower. Ostensibly, it was for crisis management. In reality, Miranda and Julian had set it up as a trap. They expected Ava to attend, desperate to defend herself. Ava arrived precisely on time, escorted by Luca posing as her technical advisor. The lobby guards tensed but let them through. Carrington blood still opened doors. Inside the private auditorium, the power players were already seated. Charles Carrington sat at the center, a marble statue carved from guilt and pride. Julian was to his right, Miranda to his left, both pretending this wasn't their show. "Ah," Miranda purred as Ava walked in. The prodigal daughter returns. Ready to apologize. Ava smiled faintly. Ready to tell the truth. Julian scoffed. The only truth is that you're a liability. You've been suspended. You have no authority here. Ava turned to the ceiling camera, the one with the faint red light that had haunted her for weeks. Funny, she said softly. Because I believe this room still knows exactly who I am. She nodded to Luca. He hit a key. The projector screens on the walls flickered to life. At first only static. Then, video clips began to roll. Julian's voice. We'll bury the funds under a dummy vendor. She'll never find them. Miranda's voice. Leak her inner thoughts. Make her look unstable. The board will eat her alive. Charles Carrington's voice. Do it. She's not ready. I built this empire. She won't take it from me. Every secret Ava had uncovered played in their own voices, recorded by the same surveillance system they'd used to destroy her. The room went dead silent. Faces drained of color. Miranda shot to her feet. This is illegal. Ava tilted her head. Illegal like exposing my private thoughts? Illegal like stealing from investors. Julian lunged for the laptop. Luca stepped between them. Charles's voice thundered. Enough. But Ava's inner voice rang out clear, carried by the system speakers. This is what you made me. This is what you feared. And for the first time, Charles Carrington looked small. Security guards began murmuring in the back. Some board members slipped out, calling their lawyers. Others stared at Ava with something like awe. She turned to her father. You taught me power demands silence, she said softly. But power can demand truth too. Charles's jaw clenched. You'll destroy everything. Ava's voice was quiet but implacable. No, father. I'm saving what's left. Outside the tower, as if timed with precision, the media trucks and live streams lit up. Luca had fed the same footage to every major outlet simultaneously. Within minutes, the scandal wasn't just a leak. It was a wildfire. Headlines blazed. Carrington family caught in massive cover-up. Heiress Ava Carrington exposes father's empire. Investors began to pull out. Regulators announced inquiries. The Carrington dynasty cracked in real time. Ava left the building through the back entrance, slipping into the night while chaos erupted behind her. Luca followed, breathless. You just detonated a bomb, he said. She paused, glancing back at the skyscraper, her inheritance, her prison, her battlefield. Its mirrored windows reflected the city's lights like shards of glass. They built their empire on secrets, she murmured. I just made sure everyone could hear them. Luca looked at her. Equal parts admiration and worry. What happens now? Ava gave a small, almost serene smile. Now, the world decides what to do with the truth. She walked away from the tower without looking back. For the first time in her life, she felt free. The morning after the broadcast, the world looked different. Carrington Tower still stood tall against the skyline, but its name, its legacy, was ash in the air. By noon, government officials had raided corporate headquarters. Federal agents carted out boxes of files while journalists swarmed the front steps. Reporters shouted questions about money laundering, fraud, and illegal surveillance. The Carrington name, once synonymous with wealth and grace, had become a headline for downfall. And at the center of it all was Ava. She watched the chaos unfold from a small cafe 2 blocks away, a plain coat pulled over her shoulders, sunglasses hiding the exhaustion beneath her eyes. The news anchors' voices spilled from the cafe's television. Charles Carrington, longtime CEO of Carrington Group, has stepped down effective immediately following a corruption scandal exposed by his daughter, Ava Carrington. Leaked footage from inside the boardroom appears to implicate multiple executives. Public sentiment is divided. Some call her a hero, others, a traitor. Ava stirred her coffee, the spoon clinking softly against porcelain. For years she had dreamed of justice, of truth. But the victory tasted bitter. Everything burns eventually, she murmured. Across from her, Luca watched her carefully. You did what you had to do. They left you no choice. Ava gave a tired laugh. I wanted to expose the corruption. Instead, I dismantled my own bloodline. Sometimes you have to end one dynasty to start another, Luca said. She looked up at him, eyes glinting in the dull light. You make it sound noble. He shrugged. Maybe it is. By afternoon, the board officially dissolved. Miranda fled the country on a private jet before the subpoenas landed. Julian tried to spin a press statement claiming innocence, but within hours, his emails hit the public web. His career was over. And Charles Carrington, the patriarch himself, vanished into silence. No public comment. No statement. Just an empty corner office with a single framed photo. Ava as a little girl, sitting beside him in a company car, both smiling for a future that no longer existed. When Ava stepped into that office one last time, the air was thick with memory. Her fingers brushed the desk where her father had signed her first company proposal, only to reject it minutes later. The chair creaked as she sat, her reflection caught in the glass wall overlooking the city. This was her inheritance. An empire broken by truth. Luca's voice came through her phone speaker. It's over. You're free. She shook her head slowly. No. Not yet. The next day, she called a press conference. Not as the daughter of Charles Carrington, but as herself. The room was packed with reporters. Cameras flashed. The air vibrated with anticipation. Carrington Group, she began, was built on ambition and silence. My father believed that controlling the narrative was the same as protecting it. I believed that the truth mattered more. And I still do. She paused, letting the words settle. Effective immediately, all Carrington assets will be liquidated. Every cent recovered from illegal accounts will go toward employee restitution and community rebuilding. The Carrington name will end with me. A collective gasp swept through the room. Reporters leaned forward, scribbling furiously. Miss Carrington, one called out. Are you saying you're walking away from everything? Ava's smile was small, almost peaceful. I'm saying I'm finally choosing myself. That evening, she walked through the nearly empty halls of Carrington Tower one last time. The power had been cut for most floors. Only emergency lights glowed faintly, painting everything in shades of gold and gray. As she reached the top floor, the doors opened onto the rooftop terrace. The wind was cold, whipping through her hair. Below her, the city buzzed with life, unbothered, unstoppable, indifferent. Luca joined her quietly, 2 steaming cups in hand. Coffee, he said. You look like you could use one. She smiled faintly and took it. What now? He asked after a long silence. Ava exhaled. The city lights reflected in her eyes. I rebuild. Maybe not Carrington Group. Maybe not anything corporate. But something honest. Something that matters. Truth Incorporated? He teased gently. She laughed softly. Maybe just Ava Carrington, human being. Luca nodded. That's a start. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like an heiress, or an executive, or a pawn in someone else's game. She just felt alive. The city stretched endlessly ahead of her, vast and unwritten. Ready? Luca asked. Ava looked out at the horizon, her voice steady and sure. Always. As the wind carried her hair across her face, the last vestiges of the Carrington Empire fell behind her. But the woman who walked away wasn't the perfect heiress the world once knew. She was something far more dangerous, something far more free. Years had passed since the fall of the Carrington Empire, but Ava Carrington's shadow still loomed over the skyline. Not as a name emblazoned on glass towers, not as a symbol of wealth or control, but as a quiet force of change. She stood in a modest office that overlooked the city she had once ruled from above. The space was sparse but purposeful. Clean lines, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and walls lined with books on ethics, leadership, and corporate governance. A single plaque on the wall read, "The Carrington Foundation for Corporate Integrity." It wasn't a corporation. It wasn't an empire. It was something simpler, and far more enduring. Luca Park, now her longtime partner in both work and life, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You've built something people actually respect," he said with a grin. Ava smiled faintly. "I wanted to make sure the name Carrington, if it has to exist at all, stands for something honest. Not power. Not corruption. Truth." He shook his head, still impressed. "Most people would have walked away. You didn't just walk away. You rebuilt the battlefield into a sanctuary." She looked out the window at the city below. The streets were alive, indifferent to her past but full of possibility. It wasn't easy. I lost a lot, family, wealth, trust. But I gained clarity. That's worth more than any title or inheritance. Luca stepped beside her. And what about your father? Ava exhaled slowly. He had his chance. I saved him in my own way by exposing the truth. If he's learned anything, it'll be private. I don't need his approval anymore. Her reflection shimmered in the glass. She could still see the girl who had been silenced, trapped under her father's expectations, who had been broadcast to the world against her will. But that girl had grown into a woman who had mastered the weapon of truth, who had turned vulnerability into power, and who now walked freely in the light. The foundation had grown steadily. Ava oversaw initiatives that helped companies maintain transparency, rewarded whistleblowers, and offered scholarships for young women aspiring to leadership positions in business. Every success felt personal, a victory not just over her family's corruption, but over a world that often rewarded silence over integrity. One afternoon, a young executive visited her office, nervous and bright-eyed. "Miss Carrington, I wanted to thank you. Your work inspired me to speak up about unethical practices at my company. Without your example, I might have stayed quiet." Ava smiled, her voice soft but firm. Speaking up is never easy. But it's the only way the world changes. Keep going. Don't let anyone silence you. Especially yourself. The young woman left, determined, and Ava watched her go with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. That evening, Ava and Luca walked along the rooftop terrace of her office building. The city glimmered below, alive and untamed. She inhaled deeply, letting the wind whip through her hair. "You know," Luca said quietly, "you've come a long way from the girl hiding behind perfection in the boardroom." She laughed softly. "Yes. And I'll never go back there. Not for anyone." He smiled, eyes meeting hers. "So, what's next?" Ava gazed at the horizon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the same colors that had once reflected off Carrington Tower the night she reclaimed her power. "Now," she said, "I shape the world I want to live in. Honestly, openly, without fear." And with that, she stepped forward, leaving the shadows of the past behind her. The heiress was gone. In her place stood a woman of vision, a woman of truth, and a legacy that could not be bought, sold, or silenced. Because some power, real power, wasn't inherited. It was forged in fire, tempered by truth, and carried forward by courage. Ava Carrington had finally claimed it. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more original novel stories. And stay tuned, our next story is coming soon.